The transport station smelled like burnt ozone and regret. Commander Vex'thar of the Galactic Transit Authority stood behind his polished desk, for arms crossed, in what he considered an imposing stance. Before him stood a human soldier, dusty and worn, with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. "I'm sorry, but all seats are reserved," Vex'thar said, not sounding sorry at all. His translator implant made his voice sound appropriately bureaucratic, which was exactly the tone he wanted. "Perhaps you should have booked earlier." The human, who'd introduced himself as Marcus Webb, simply nodded. No argument. No raised voice. He just picked up his bag and walked toward the standing section of the transport. Vex'thar felt a small surge of satisfaction. Humans thought they were so special, so important. This one would learn his place soon enough. The other passengers, a collection of Thyarian merchants and Kalesh diplomats, watched the exchange with varying degrees of interest. Most returned to their seats, settling into the cushioned chairs that would carry them through the 6-hour voyage to Station Meridian. "Attention, all passengers," Vex'thar announced through the intercom. "Departure in 15 minutes. Please ensure all belongings are secured." He noticed the human remained standing near the back, one hand gripping an overhead rail. The soldier's eyes were closed, his breathing steady. Probably exhausted, Vex'thar thought. Good. Maybe next time humans would remember to follow proper procedures. 10 minutes into the flight, the first alarm sounded. Vex'thar's primary eyes widened as red lights flooded the cockpit. His secondary eyes darted to the navigation console, where warnings cascaded across the screen like a digital waterfall. "What is happening?" demanded Thyros, one of the merchants, his voice climbing 3 octaves. "Minor technical issue," Vex'thar lied smoothly. "Nothing to worry about." Everything to worry about, actually. The navigation system had just died. Completely. They were now hurtling through space on momentum alone, with no ability to adjust course or even know where they were going. The pilot, a young Kalesh named Prex, turned to Vex'thar with terror in all 6 of his eyes. "Commander, the backup systems aren't responding. We're flying blind." Vex'thar felt his inner stomachs twist. They were approaching the Shard Belt, a notorious field of crystallized debris that had torn apart more ships than he cared to remember. Without navigation, they'd fly straight into it. "Can anyone here repair a NAV system?" Vex'thar asked the passengers, trying to keep the panic from his voice. He failed miserably. Silence. The merchants looked at each other. The diplomats checked their personal devices as if the answer might be in their messages. Then a voice came from the back. Calm. Almost casual. "I can take a look." Everyone turned. The human soldier was making his way forward, moving with surprising grace despite the swaying of the transport. "You?" Vex'thar couldn't hide his skepticism. What would a grunt soldier know about advanced navigation systems? Marcus Webb smiled, and it wasn't a particularly friendly expression. "Grunt soldier. That's funny. You know what's also funny? I didn't just happen to be passing through. I was actually scheduled for a military transport, but it got delayed. So I booked this civilian flight instead." "So what?" Vex'thar snapped. "So," Marcus continued, moving past him toward the console, "I'm not just any soldier. I'm a combat engineer attached to the Terran Fleet Repair Division. I've rebuilt NAV systems while ships were actively on fire and being shot at. This should be, how do you say, a walk in the park." Vex'thar's mandibles hung open. "You're a combat engineer?" Among other things. Marcus was already elbow-deep in the console panel, his fingers moving with practiced precision. "Hand me that neural spanner." "The blue one." "No, your other left." Prex scrambled to comply, his earlier panic replaced with something like hope. "The problem is," Marcus said, not looking up from his work, "these civilian transports use outdated Kalesh technology. No offense, Prex. Your people make beautiful art, but your engineering philosophy is, shall we say, optimistic? You assume nothing will break. Can you fix it?" Vex'thar asked, his voice much smaller now. "Probably, but I'm going to need about 3 minutes of absolute silence. And someone should probably start calculating manual trajectory corrections in case this takes longer than expected." The transport shuddered. Through the viewport, the first glimmers of the Shard Belt appeared, like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Beautiful. Deadly. Marcus's hands moved faster. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The merchants had gone completely silent, barely breathing. Even Thyros had stopped complaining. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. Then 4. The shards grew larger in the viewport. They were running out of time. Marcus, Prex whispered. Almost there. Just need to reroute the power coupling through the secondary manifold, and got it. The navigation display flickered. Once, twice, then blazed to life with glorious, beautiful data. Pull up now. Marcus shouted. Prex didn't hesitate. His hands flew across the controls, and the transport banked hard to starboard. Everyone not seated went stumbling. The hull groaned under the stress. A massive shard passed by the viewport, close enough that Vex'thar could see individual facets in its structure. Then another. Then they were through, emerging on the other side of the belt with nothing more than a few superficial scratches on the hull. The cabin erupted in cheers. Thyros was actually crying, his profit margins saved from oblivion. Marcus calmly closed the panel and wiped his hands on his pants. He looked at Vex'thar with an expression that might have been amusement. So, the human said quietly, about that seat? Vex'thar felt all four of his stomachs drop simultaneously. The standing section where Marcus had spent the first 10 minutes of the flight now seemed like the most insulting place in the entire galaxy. His translator implant suddenly felt too tight around his neck. Of course, Vex'thar managed, gesturing with 3 of his arms toward the premium cabin. Please, take any seat you wish. First class. With our compliments. Marcus picked up his duffel bag and paused. For a horrible moment, Vex'thar thought the human might refuse just to make a point. Instead, Marcus smiled that same not-quite-friendly smile and said, You know what? I'll take that seat right there. He pointed to the chair directly beside where Thyros sat. The merchant, who just moments ago had been weeping with relief, now looked like he'd won the Galactic lottery. He practically bounced in his seat. Please, please sit. Thyros exclaimed. I am honored. Truly honored. Tell me, how did you learn such skills? Your hands moved like, I don't even have words. Marcus settled into the chair, stretching his legs out with an audible sigh of relief. Trade school, mostly. Then the military took what I knew and added about 15 layers of don't die while fixing things. Really focuses the mind, you know? The other passengers had begun gathering around. Even the Kalesh diplomats, who usually maintained strict professional distance, had moved closer to hear better. Prex left the cockpit on autopilot and joined them. That reroute through the secondary manifold, I've never seen that technique. Where did you learn it? Made it up about 30 seconds before I did it. Marcus admitted cheerfully. Your systems are different enough from Terran designs that I had to improvise. Honestly, I was about 60% sure it would work. 60%. Vex'thar's voice came out as a squeak. Marcus shrugged. Better odds than flying into the shard belt with no navigation. Sometimes you take the chances you're given. He pulled a ration bar from his pocket and unwrapped it with a crinkle that seemed unnaturally loud in the suddenly quiet cabin. Anyone else hungry? I've got extras. Thyros leaned forward, his earlier fear completely replaced by curiosity. I must ask, and please forgive my directness, but why didn't you say anything? When the commander denied you a seat, you could have mentioned your qualifications. You could have demanded better treatment. Marcus chewed thoughtfully before answering. Could have, sure. But here's the thing about being human. We don't like to brag. Well, some of us do, but I'm not one of them. Besides, I've stood through worse than a 6-hour flight. Military transports aren't exactly luxury cruises. But the disrespect, one of the diplomats interjected, her translator making her voice sound like wind chimes. Were you not offended? Offended. Marcus considered this. Maybe a little. But then I figured, why make a scene over a chair? Life's too short. Besides, standing builds character. Vex'thar wanted to melt into the floor plating. The human's casual forgiveness somehow made his earlier behavior seem even worse. He cleared his throat with all 3 of his voice chambers. Mr. Webb, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on appearance and species. It was unprofessional and wrong. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. The cabin had gone quiet again, everyone waiting to see how the human would respond. Would he accept? Would he make Vex'thar grovel further? The tension stretched like elastic. Then Marcus extended his hand. Apology accepted, Commander. We all have bad days. Let's just say you owe me a drink when we reach Station Meridian, and we'll call it even. Vex'thar stared at the offered hand. In galactic culture, such quick forgiveness was unusual. Most species would have demanded formal hearings, compensation, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Humans, apparently, Just wanted a drink and a handshake. He reached out with his primary hand and clasped Marcus's. It would be my honor. The rest of the flight passed in what could only be described as a mobile celebration. Thyros produced a bottle of Thyarian wine from his luggage, apparently reserved for special occasions. The diplomats shared stories of their own near disasters in space travel. Prex kept asking technical questions until Marcus good-naturedly told him to write them down for later. As Station Meridian grew larger in the viewport, Vex'thar found himself sitting across from Marcus, nursing a small glass of the wine. "Can I ask you something?" Vex'thar said quietly, while the others were distracted by Thyros's increasingly exaggerated retelling of their survival. "Shoot. Why are humans like this? We denied you a seat. We treated you as less than. Yet you saved us all without hesitation, and you forgave instantly. What?" Marcus gazed out at the stars sliding past the window. When he spoke, his voice was soft but certain. "Because holding grudges is exhausting, Commander. And because when someone's in danger, you help them. It's not complicated. You don't stop to think about whether they were rude to you earlier. You just act. That's what humans do. We're not special because we're strong or smart. We're special because we care, even when maybe we shouldn't." The transport docked at Station Meridian with barely a shudder. As passengers gathered their belongings, Marcus was surrounded by beings wanting to shake his hand, thank him, exchange contact information. Thyros insisted on giving him a business card promising lifetime discounts. The diplomats offered formal commendations to send to his superiors. Vex'thar waited until the crowd thinned before approaching one final time. "That drink I promised? I meant it." Marcus grinned, and this time it was genuinely friendly. "I know a place on the station that makes something called a Void Runner. Fair warning, though, it's basically rocket fuel in a glass." "After today," Vex'thar said, all four arms spreading wide in a gesture of acceptance, "I think we could both use some rocket fuel." They walked off the transport together, the soldier who'd been denied a seat and the commander who'd learned a valuable lesson. Behind them, the other passengers filed out, each one carrying a story they'd tell for years about the day a human reminded them what really mattered. Not status, not seats, not pride, just doing the right thing when it counted. And maybe, just maybe, that's what made humans truly special after all. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.